Mark Manning, talk us through your journey to UNI.
Well, I was associate head coach at University of Oklahoma with Jack Spates, and the UNI job opened up after the NCAA tournament, and I was fortunate to get the job. And I think I was the only non-Iowa guy to interview for the job, number one. And Chris Retrieve, um, was the athletic director there, and took a chance on me. So I'm really grateful for Chris, and that's when things got fun.
What was the state of the program when you took over?
They had some tough times. Don Briggs was kind of at the end of his career, and they've had a storied program there. And Chris Retrieve, the athletic director, said, "Hey, we should be top 10." And I'm not quite sure what they finished, 50 something that year. The NCAA tournament was held at UNI at the Dome. Coach Gable's last year, obviously. So a lot of things changing in wrestling, and they felt they needed to change. And I was fortunate to get that job. And I brought, Brad Penrith and Steve Hamilton were my coaches, and Tolly Thompson. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work though, and just to rebuild the program and get us competitive. We had some trying times, tough times at the beginning, just getting people to buy in, and but slowly but surely we just got different guys to buy in the program and make gains and see what hard work and the principles that we laid out, the foundation we laid out, that it was on solid ground. We built on the rock. We didn't build it on the sand for the water to come in and wash it away. We built it on solid ground, and we built on principles that those young men bought into. And then I had transfer in Eric Keller come in, and Randy Pugh had left Naval Academy, and he was an Iowa guy, and Randy and Eric infused a ton of energy into the program along with Tony Davis, obviously. So it was a fun 3 years. I learned a lot, about myself, but I also learned how to build a program. But fortunate to have that opportunity.
Could you speak to some of the values and your core philosophy when you start a program from scratch? What you're looking at there?
Well, it starts just with the young men that we're coaching. Just do they love the sport? And so their love for the sport will be infectious in regards to how much work they want to put into it. And we all know wrestling, it takes a lot of work. If I'm half as talented as you, I'm going to have to work twice as hard. And that's what sometimes wrestlers forget is, well, I'm really talented, I should win. And the next guy is a grinder, and my man outworks you 10 times to 1. Well, he's going to pass you up. And so just buying into those concepts that, well, I won in high school, I should win in college. And that's not always true. It's you have to not relearn the sport, but you have to recommit yourself. I always tell guys that were you the best in the state, or were you the best in the nation as a freshman? Probably not. It's the same thing in college. You're probably not the best guy in the nation as a true freshman. It's going to take steps, and it's going to take recommitment, and you're going to fail a lot before you succeed at the top level. So
What about
just about getting young men to buy in, and we had a lot of buy-in. We had a lot of good recruiting going on. We worked at it extremely hard, and Steve and Brad, Tolly, I mean, they were just there every step of the way, and it was fun doing it with those guys. We did a lot of things that probably you couldn't do now. I know, in regards to not breaking rules. I'm just talking about, we drywalled our whole offices. The university didn't really know. I could say that now. I'm coaching at Nebraska, but we wanted to fix our place up. We wanted to get, make it nice for their guys. Our wrestling room, our wrestling locker room, and we're recruiting against, Minnesota, who was really dominant at that time. Iowa was always good. Iowa State, Coach Douglas was there at Iowa State. I mean, are you serious? We Nebraska was good at that time, so we're recruiting against all those people, we had two wooden nickels we were trying to rub together. So we were we we had a disadvantage, but we created a smoke and mirror.
Love it. Was there any moments when you got in, like 3 months in, you're like, what the heck did I get myself into here?
No, I knew it was tough. I knew it was going to be. It was great. It's the tougher the better. I think it was tough. I had different. I won't say their names, but Hall of Fame coaches, I would say, that would call me up and say, Manny, I don't know why you're recruiting this guy. You're never going to get him. He ain't going to Northern Iowa. He's got 2 schools in state. He's got us. He's got this. He's like, I don't know. You're wasting your time,
So you go
And
after
so-
the big recruits.
Huh?
You go after the big
Absolutely. Absolutely. My 3rd year, we had the number 1 recruiting class in the country. We did things that people didn't think we could, and Tony Davis played a big part on that, being a national champion. They hadn't had a national champion in 37 years. So you're breaking down barriers and you're breaking down people's belief in what you could do, and not thinking small. We weren't thinking small. We were thinking, hey, we're going in there and we're going to light it on fire. And I think that's what Brad brought. Brad Penrith and Steve Hamilton, same way. I love Steve. Those guys they thought different, and that's why I hired them. And Tolly was awesome and a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun together, and we worked our butt off.
And before we get to Tony, last question. Tell us about the little town of Cedar Falls for someone who's never been there before. What memories do you have of it?
It's great, man. The people are great. They're passionate about wrestling. There's a lot of great boosters there. I developed a lot of great relationships with the Llewellyn family and Larry Hamilton, who's now passed away. But just a lot of people that really were passionate about the program, and just they were proud of UNI wrestling, and they wanted to be successful. They wanted to see different sparks, and slowly but surely we started creating young men that really wrestled with a passion and wrestled with pride for UNI and the team concept, how guys came together. But it wasn't easy getting guys to do that at first. It was some interesting times, to say the least.
And you talk about the history of UNI. I know the great Bill Wick. Bill Cole was there. Like, those are
Yes.
some of the great legends of that 40s and 50s era. So that was the
Yeah.
mecca. And so then you take over. You guys are starting to build. When does the great Tony Davis cross your radar for the first time?
Well, he competed at the UNO Open, and I remember he was at Iowa Central, and I can't exactly remember all the matches, but he beat a lot of tough guys, and he didn't know to beat him. He manhandled. We were like, holy buckets, this dude he's a different cat. He's a different wrestler. And I looked into him more and more and found out his background, found out where he was from. Obviously, Mount Carmel. I had coached John Kading at Oklahoma. John was a Mount Carmel guy. And so just finding out about his background and it was Harvey Twister legendary program, and all the Joe and TJ Williams came from there, and all these other, and Stevie Williams, and who might have been the better Williams. I know. Won't say that around Joe and TJ, but Stevie was really talented. Obviously, but Joe and TJ were studs, and but Tony grew up with all those guys, and they just fed off each other. And like Tony, if I'm right, 7 or 8 time little kid state champ in the state of Illinois, which was unheard of, right? And so he was a talented young man. We were going to take him and teach him next level stuff. not just from the wrestling perspective, but from the life standpoint. And that's how to take care of his family, and that's how to make a living, and that's how to sustain a job, and 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 really add to society, right? And that's what we have to do as coaches: prepare young men for life. And Tony really bought into that and trust us, and away we went.
What about Tony's background? What'd you learn there?
Uh, well, I grew up a farm kid in Vermilion, South Dakota, and he probably 180 from Tony Davis. Grew up in Cabrini Green, and now Cabrini Green doesn't even exist. But I had heard, the worst ghetto in America. Just hard to imagine, but also it's just shows the character that he had to pull himself out of there. I know I talked to his mom a couple of times, and just, she knew that I would take care of Tony. I was a man of my word that I was going to take care of Tony, not only just as a wrestler, but as a person. And so it was a great journey with Tony, just to know that, yeah, Bill Wick, it was his coach and legendary guy, crusty old son of a gun that just, led with a steel whip. And, he was straightforward, and met Quentin, Tony's Harvard Twister coach, and just, he really gave me insight on how to coach Tony and how to reach him. And Tony grew up a tough life. He had a lot of instability, I would say, right? And not a normal family dynamic. And so, but he loved the sport of wrestling, and he was really good at it. And so we used that to get Tony to come to you and I, that, hey, to buy in, come to our family, come to here and help do something great.
What did Quint tell you about working with Tony?
Quentin?
Yeah, what did he say? Like when you were trying to get to understand him?
Just so would always say, just stay tough on him, coach. Just stay tough on him. He's a tough, hard-nosed guy and talented, but just stay tough on him, man. Put your arm around him when you need to, but use your foot up his rear end. But we had a lot of great times. And one thing, that's why Tony had to go to junior college, because academy didn't meet the academic standards. So, one thing I know that Tony did was, I told Tony, hey, you have to, just like wrestling, if you're the best guy, you don't have to develop. And if I'm the 8th best guy in the weight class, I have to work twice as hard to beat you, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not a great student. So number one, go to class, right? And he did that, and he did well. He never had any issues academically, and that's where a lot of people, didn't take a chance on Tony because they didn't think he could succeed academically. And Tony bought in and was dumb enough to believe me. Go to class, and he used the resources around him. So he was smart, man.
Yeah,
he was very smart, and he had a great feel for people, and he was a good relationship type of guy. So he developed relationships with his professors, and so I wouldn't say he snowed them over, but he worked with them, and they worked with Tony, and Tony was a good communicator that way.
Ghost Trainer said that. He's like, one, Tony never missed class, but two, he could sweet talk the teachers because he had that kind of personality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he used that in other areas of life too, but he definitely, he was good. He was, he never lied to me. He was always straightforward. If he messed up, he was honest with me. And that's how I even loved him more, because I knew we had a relationship of trust.
Yeah. And so once you got him on campus, what's the transition for a JUCO wrestler to the D1 level, strictly wrestling wise?
Well, it's, I would say it's just consistency over each week in and week out. The consistency of being at your A game or close to your A game. You can't wrestle one guy, really hard, and you have a duel with Iowa State and you wrestle him hard, and then you come back and you wrestle someone that you should beat. Well, what usually happens? One, you don't work out that hard that week because you feel you have an easier match. You don't make weight that well, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a heater. And so I think that's the area where guys coming, whether from high school or junior college, and you have to make the transition. Is every match could be a heater, and so you have to prepare for that. It's going to be a tough match, tough bout. People are going to push you and challenge you, and you got to be ready for that week in and week out. I think just consistency of wrestling, high level competition, where when he was at junior college, he got himself ready for UNO Open. He knew, hey, I'm going to wrestle maybe a guy from Oklahoma State or Nebraska or Iowa State or wherever, Division II national champ, and I got to be on my A game. And so he was ready for that, but just transitioning and being consistent each week.
Was that UNO Open a pretty big deal back in the day?
Man, it wasn't ever. It was, Oklahoma State would come up, Minnesota come down, Iowa State. Iowa would come sometimes, and it was an all-day thing. I remember several times semifinals starting at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So yeah, it was a huge tournament that Mike Denny created there at UNO, and it was at the beginning of the year, so it was kind of a great test for everyone. And obviously Iowa Central and a lot of junior college Division II schools would come, and they had a freshman, sophomore they developed in Division II, and so it was an all-day thing, and a day you better bring your lunch pail.
That's where Gil, totally off topic, Gil Sanchez beat John Smith at Nebraska, and then 2 days later in the finals of that, John beat Gil, which is like crazy. Just the history of that tournament,
History of that tournament was fascinating. How many really good guys clashed, and it was great. It was an early season test, and I don't know if we really have that right now, but that thing was a highlight, man. Coach Denny and Ronnie Higdon, those guys really put a lot into that tournament, and it was a highlight for people, and it was a marker like, hey, I'm going to test myself here.
Yeah,
I'm going to have 4 or 5 tough guys and see I size up.
I love when they weave in the different levels too, because you might have a JUCO stud coming in under the radar, and he blazes through, like what happened with Tony. I was looking at Tony's bracket, and it must have been 97, 98, so winter or fall of 97 about now. Kale won that tournament in the open division. Tony won that tournament in the open division. Like those are the kind of guys going there. So you see Tony there, you recruit him, bring him to UNI, and he
was not an easy recruitment.
Tell me about that.
Well, it was interesting. Just, Nebraska was recruiting him. Iowa State was recruiting him. Some other people were recruiting him. It was not an easy get, and, we knew it was a big get for us at UNI. Did we know he was going to be a national champ? Not exactly, but, he was a runner-up. And I remember him after that match, he lost to TJ. How ironic is that? He wrestled his high school teammate and buddy that he was in Harvey Twisters with in the finals. And I remember he was emotional and broken down after the match, and he was just wanted to be a national champ so bad. And I told him, hey, Tony, remember all the little things? We were in the back behind some bleachers, wherever arena we were in that year. And I remember he breaking down, and just he was really emotional about losing. And he just said, I want it so bad. I said, hey, Tony, remember all the little things that I told you that you need to do. Like, you need to show up on time for lifting. You need to lift weights. You need to do this. There's 4 or 5 things that we let you get by that you didn't want to do. You got to buy in 100%. If you do that, Tony, next year at this time, you're going to be a national champ. No one will touch you, but you got to buy into it. Right. And he did. He said, absolutely, coach, I'll do it. And sure enough, he was dumb enough to listen to me, and it turned out he was a superstar. And it wasn't easy for him, obviously. Never easy being a national champion.
Mm-hmm. Superstar though, no question. I mean, especially even when he was in high school, when he was on some of those great teams, TJ was kind of like the undercard and Tony was the headliner. Because TJ was kind of in the shadows of Joe, and then TJ really had to come into his own. And then when Tony stopped going to Mount Carmel senior year, TJ kind of came to his own. But even in JUCOs, TJ got second, Tony won it. It's crazy. And so TJ goes to Iowa, Tony comes to you. Tell me about some of like the early practices you had with Tony. The first time you got to see him in the room.
Yeah, we had guys like Brad Penrith and Steve Hamilton, and we had a lot of guys that tried to really, some of the guys couldn't hold up with Tony. He's just too talented. And one thing about, I would say, TJ and Tony, I could see that because Tony's a showman. He wants to put on a show, and he had, some awesome cradles, and he had some big moves. Not that TJ didn't, I would say, but TJ was stud too. But Tony was a showman, and he knew he liked to put on a show for people. He was like, hey, everyone's coming to watch me. I'm going to put on a show. That was great for us because we needed that energy. We needed that moxie, that savviness, that guy that comes in and kind of cocky, right? Mm-hmm. But could back it up. And so that was great. I'll tell you a quick story. Please. I think I shared it. I remember we wrestled Mankato State, and 2 timeouts was match ender back then. You couldn't take 2 timeouts, right? And it was our first duel or something. We went up to Mankato State, and he wrestled like the Division II national champion, returning national champion. And Tony was putting on the kid, but there was like a minute and a half left in the match, and he had taken a timeout, and really he had an oxygen break, right? So he took a little oxygen break, and the crowd was booing him, but he was up like, I don't know, 14-3 or 15-5 or something. He didn't quite have the tech fall, and he didn't know. I know what he was thinking. Man, I have to put in a couple more takedowns or do a big move to end this match because this kid won't stop, but I'm beating him to death, right? But I really want to stop the match right now. I want the match to be over, but it wasn't over. And he took a timeout, and we went over, blah, blah, blah. And the crowd was booing. And then he takes the guy down a couple more times, gets away, and there's like 30 seconds. They went out of bounds on the scramble. They thought they were going to take him down, but Tony had kind of a trick leg and awesome balance, and crowd got all worked up. And Tony's like, kind of, and he does this. I'm like, we're all, no, because then the match would have been over, and it was over by their bench, and the ref was turned. He didn't see it because he was turned the other way, heading back toward the middle, and Tony's like, I need a break. And we're yelling at him, no, and they're all yelling, and Jim ran over to the ref and to the head table and tried to talk to the ref about him taking it. Tony's like, I wasn't doing this. I was doing, come on. Hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
So we were sweating bullets that the ref would call the match. And I think Tony was up like 17-6 or something at that time. So, well, he won the match obviously, and we got him through. But one of those lessons that kind of your transition from JUCO to Division I, you're going to have some of those moments with some of those guys that just say, hey, this guy's 1, he's not going to quit. 2, you can't get tired. You can't, body language is important. And just some funny moments with that. And he displayed that sometimes in practice. He'd get gassed, and no one challenged him really. They didn't have enough guys really to challenge him, say at Iowa Central or probably even at Mount Carmel a lot of times. So, we really challenged him. He really just bought in the mental toughness, how to control your mind and how to relax and breathe, and how to, just get in better condition and be able to hold up.
Mm-hmm. And then when you think about his style, like how would you describe it?
Amazing. He was an amazing athlete. I remember he wrestled Jordan one time here at one of our camps. Jordan was a puppy, but Jordan was younger, and they went at it. It just amazing hips, great feel for the sport, just an uncommon feel for the sport. He just had a unreal feel. He was really good on, everyone knew he was good on his feet, but he was really good on top. And he had a spladle. He had a lot of really good cradles, but everyone thinks, oh, he's just good on his feet because he was flashy, he was fast, but he was also, and he had good leg defense, but so he was hard to score on, I guess I would say, but he was just an all-around good wrestler. And when we got him in good shape, and he believed that he was in good shape, he was tough to beat.
Yeah, here's a couple adjectives people have used to describe his style. Tony Davis looked like water out there, and then another one was electric, and then 3, just a natural.
Yeah,
just a feel for it.
Yeah, he could snap it down, but if you shot on him, he'd run behind you in a heartbeat. And he's really quick. He had a great feel, and you said it right. He had a great feel for the sport, and he had a knack for hitting big moves too. He'd catch you on your back. He could whip you over, and cradle you. He had a good cradle, man. He had long arms, and he was good on top. He was good with legs, and I know I always kid Jared Lawrence. They wrestled. Thank goodness Tony didn't have to wrestle him as Lawrence got up in age his junior and senior year, but they scrapped one year, and Lawrence was coming at him like a spider monkey, man. He was coming at Tony, boy, really pushing his conditioning. And probably if Tony would have caught him the year before, Jared would have ran him down. But just showed Tony's resilience, showed that he grew up. He took Lawrence down again and then rode him out with legs, and really good with spladle, and just dangerous.
People do discount his top wrestling. I don't know why. It's crazy. I mean, and that Lawrence match, that was his senior year, because his senior year he wrestles Lawrence a couple times, Zadok a couple times. But his junior year, when he first got there, he loses to Oscar Wood in the All-Star, or in like the Texas duels. You remember that one?
Yes, now I do.
Yeah. And then he gets injured. He had a lot of injuries that first year.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that process?
I just remember he would let guys in on his legs too deep, and he would just get rolling around too much, and just not, some of his basic skills weren't honed to where he just wasn't used to those type of positions all the time that guys at the Division I level is going to put you in, and stay out of them for the most part. He was good enough athlete, good enough wrestler to stay out of those. And he just got more solid. He got more solid with his hand fighting. And that's where we really challenged him, just in his hand fight and keeping his motion going, because he was so elusive, and using his fakes and his motion to his advantage.
I love when he would fake that low single and the guy would react so hard. The guy would fall on his face and Tony's already behind him.
Just amazing.
Like yeah.
Amazing. And he just had a feel. That's another example of a lot of guys can fake and snap, but for Tony to be already around you as you're reacting, come up, he was fast, and he had, that's a talent that he developed though when he was younger and through high school, and someone showed him that he really took it and took ownership of that skill.
And you said early on he was a little hesitant in the weight room, didn't like the running, didn't like the lifting. And he's told me that. Talk to me about some of those early conversations you had with him. Like, would he say, "Coach, I don't want to do it," or how'd it go?
Oh, I remember some mornings, we'd have 6:00 morning workouts or 6:30 and something, and he would show up. I have to drive over there and get him. Those are the growing pains that it took to get him to buy in. That you have to. Every workout's important. It's not about the running. It's about buying in to understand that, hey, today I'm going to use this workout to get better. I'm going to get 10% better today. I'm going to get 1% better today because this workout is going to put me over the top. It's going to build my mindset. And it took a while for him to buy into that concept. And so, yeah, that was just something that he really had to buy into. He just thought, well, I'll just wrestle my way into shape. Sometimes, yeah, you can do that. It's good, but I've only seen a few guys do that. Dave Schultz being one of them, but you have to do it for a long time. But it's just another avenue for him to challenge himself physically and mentally.
Yeah, and a lot of guys we talked to said all the way through, even at Iowa Central, Tony was rarely pushed to his limit because he had such a high level of skill and technique over people. So that like once he finally did start putting in the lifting, the running, he's a dangerous wrestler.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about TJ Williams. Like when you're going through the season, he's ranked number 1 all year. He's an hour and a half south in Iowa City. Is it coming up that this matchup could happen? Like where are you guys at on that junior season?
Man, I remember that we knew that Tony could hit TJ in the finals, or if they were on the separate sides, we knew that matchup could happen. And we knew TJ obviously, was going to be well trained. He was going to be well prepared, and we knew it probably is going to be a tight match just from their friendship, from that side of things. That it's going to be a scrap. It's just make the most of your opportunities. I think for us, I don't remember every aspect of the match, but I just remember we need to take more chances. We need to be more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where TJ was just a little bit more aggressive and then winning, I think 5-2, right?
Yeah, I got it right here. I trimmed it down to just the highlight sections, but here's I got this one and then the Terrapelli match as well. That's it.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Wow, I didn't remember those aspects of some of that. I knew it was tight like that. Wow, they hit TJ.
What'd you see, Coach?
Huh?
What'd you see, Coach? Because this is audio only, so they're not going to be able to see this. What'd you see there when you rewatched that match?
That like I said, we needed to push the pace, get more scoring positions. TJ hit that double. We never should have had our feet square. Just getting him more prepared or ready for TJ because his double leg was awesome. And Tony had kind of an impossible leg, but we always talked about his right leg was tough to finish on. Just keep him in that stance more, man. Tough match though. Tough match. I think closer than a lot of people really remember.
So because TJ was the favorite going in?
Yeah, and they said that we would have been surprised if he came through this bracket. Well, we were thinking opposite. We thought Tony could win it,
Mm-hmm. And you said they both look pretty big for the weight, but TJ especially. What's the size difference there you saw?
Man, TJ Williams. I know Tony was pretty good size, 149 pounder, but TJ looks, probably, I don't know, half an inch or so big, taller, and then it's just frames much bigger, and not surprising him moving up to 157 next year.
Right. Yeah, that was crazy when he lost to Kiesel in the semis, and then Brett Matter won that weight. Remember the guy from Boise State?
Yes.
TJ's only college loss.
That's right.
98. Like has the highest winning percentage in Iowa history. One loss. It's like pretty crazy. And so, and like that is a crazy match because you don't see Tony like freewheeling as much. He's not fluid out there.
No, just because I think he has a lot of respect for TJ and knew he was fast and quick too. But, Tony was, just, that's how tight matches are though. It's a one takedown match. It's just something that he need to just work a little harder for. I think he really exemplified, coming in third period, getting TJ hit for stalling, but then he got scored on right away.
Yeah. And Tony told me that was the worst pain of his life. And it sounds like earlier he was pretty broken up. What do you remember about him kind of processing that loss? He took it pretty hard.
he took it really hard, and that's where I really challenged him to do all the little things right the next year. You do the details, the conditioning and the weightlifting and the full Monty, right? And you're going to be a champion. And he did. And he believed it because he needed that hope instilled in him right then, because he was a broken man. He really thought, hey, I can beat TJ, and so and I did too.
He's someone who never let the moment get bigger than, like, he never put the moment on a pedestal. Like some
No.
guys, like I remember when I wrestled in high school, just going to state, man, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
But then you got guys like Tony that aren't even thinking twice about, they're going to win the whole time in their mind, and he never made it the moment too big. So just that way he handled pressure is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things. He was, like I said earlier, he was showman. He was like, hey, I want to be on the big stage. I want to be the best wrestler on the mat that night. In a dual meet, I want to be the show.
Mm-hmm.
Fans are kind of come to see me. And that's awesome as a coach to have, because that guy, is going to instill confidence in your team by how he performs, the energy he brings, but also just the attitude he brings to the team. And so you can really challenge those type of guys.
Yeah.
Because you got to be in great shape. You got to be ready for that challenge, but you got to work hard if you're going to put on a show.
And thinking about the guys who do everything right and still get second, that's a different conversation than Tony, who had done a lot right, but he had like that 5% to go, where he was not perfect in every aspect, right? He's not winning every day, like you said. So
Schneider.
Yeah.
Brian Schneider 2 times in a row. And the rules were now, takedowns on the edge of the mat, 2 feet in, all that stuff back then, 2 knees on mat. He has TJ beat and he has Becker beat. There's, without a doubt, go and watch the matches. Brian wins those matches, but the rules are different now. So
right.
It is what it is. So
what did it do for your program to have a finalist at UNI?
It was great. Just showed that we were a program on the rise. It showed that, come to UNI and help us do something special, be different. It's easier to go to Iowa State or Iowa or Minnesota, come to our place. And so we really recruited hard at UNI, and Tony was that light. And then, Eric Keller transferred, I said, and Randy Pugh, and it just got the ball rolling in the right direction for us. And we had momentum, and Tony was one of those momentum guys as far as next level.
Yeah. In 99, you had Keller as an All-American, then Tony. So two All-Americans, like that's big, And so coming into that next year, 2000, that big recruiting class you were talking about, they're coming into the lineup a little bit.
Yeah.
They're kind of first starting to trickle in. And that year, you guys, I was telling you about it, your dual schedule was, this is UNI, Wisconsin, Minnesota. You tie Wisconsin, lose to Minnesota, go to Carver. You guys were underdogs in 9 or 10 weights, and you only lost by 7. And then after losing to Iowa December 12th, you guys go 9-0 or 9-1 all the way through February. We wrestled Oklahoma State. So like when Tony lost to Reggie Wright and Okie State.
Yeah.
So that dual mate you guys had there, that was your first loss since losing to Iowa. I mean, you guys were freaking beating Big Ten powers. You were tying people. I mean, it was awesome year. And you guys had 10-5 record, first winning record in the dual meet season for UNI in probably quite some time during that 90s era.
I think we beat the Huskers.
Yeah, you did, because that was Tony's first weekend back. You guys went to UNO on a Friday. He didn't have a big injury, but he was like out of duel. Yeah. You go to UNO on Friday, he texts some guy. And then Nebraska on Saturday, you guys beat them. It's like, and you also beat Michigan that year, who was number 7. So UNI was freaking hungry that year. You had Randy Pugh, you had, I can't remember all the guys, but a lot of real Pugh, obviously.
Yep.
But before we get to that season, Tony told me that he actually quit after losing to TJ, and that you had to say, Tony, give me one more practice. Do you remember that?
Not really, other than I know he was a broken man after that. And he had his ebb and flows And I think that's with anyone's career. You have some heartbreaks, man. You have to come back and show what you're made of. And that's what I remember. I really challenged Tony just to, hey, you're not just doing this for yourself. You're doing it for your kids. What are you going to do with your life after this? How are you going to make any money? What are you going to do? What's your character like? I challenged him that way as far as like, as a man, and look at him today. He's doing great, man. He's doing great. And
Teacher of the year. That's amazing.
Teacher of the year. Yes.
I love that. All of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Like if someone would have gone up to him his senior year of high school when he's a dropout, you found him in a trash can, his jaw's broken. If someone would have said that dude's gonna be Teacher of the Year, 15 years later, you would have been laughed at.
Yes. Absolutely. Just from the standpoint that, he really just blossomed into, I think a lot of young men, they get down on themselves. They just don't see how far they can go. And I think that wrestling was an avenue for Tony to really see how far as a person he could go. He'd do this next workout, right? Get through this workout. Get through this next workout. You're building, and he knew, man, I'm in really good shape. I love the sport. It wasn't like he didn't like wrestling, just the grind got to him, right? And try to make it fun for him. He's a fun-loving kid. That's what's great about Tony is he's a smart young man. He knew, man, I got to grind through another practice. It just, we got to made it fun for him. Got to make it fun. And then he's going to be at his best.
What was his personality off the mat?
Man, amazing. Infectious, I would say. That would be the one for one word. He was fun to joke around and ball bust with. He'd get it right back to you, all in good fun, man. He was great. He was very infectious personality, and just like he said, he chopped it up with his professors all the time, and that's how he was around us. And he's a fun-loving guy and fun-loving around his teammates. And he just brought light to the room,
Tell me about the time you sent the media guy to his brother.
Yeah. I remember it was after his first year, I think. And we had really nice media guys. TD, I call him TD. He was on the front, and he was the highlight of our program. And so Tony said something about his brother wanting some media guys. I'm like, well, Tony, tell me about your brother. Is he back home? He's like, well, no, he's in prison. And I remember wrapped up a bunch and sent him to prison for Tony's brother. And it was great. I sent some home to his mom. I know she was proud of him, obviously. And just a nice way to really recognize Tony, but just give his brother, hope in that tough situation.
And what was the situation where the teammates found out like that he had been shot and that he had bullet holes and that kind of thing?
Yeah, one day he had his shirt off on his back, his shirt off, and on his one of his shoulders, left shoulder, right shoulder, he had this little scar, a nick. And someone said, "Hey, TD, what happened there on your shoulder?" And he said, "Well, I was shot." And they all laughed. These guys are all white guys from Iowa, never probably got out of state. I say that facetiously, and they're like, "Yeah, right." He's like, "No, I was shot when I was younger." And he said he was like 8 or 9 years old, and he was ride his bike from Harvey Twister's back home, and all these gang members would always recruit the young stud athletes to sell drugs for him, and they were always trying to recruit Tony. And Tony was riding his bike. They stopped him, and he took off, and they shot at him, and then nicked him in the shoulder, a bullet. And then he said he had to run and jump in a garbage can and hid from him. And those were probably daily or weekly things that Tony had to deal with. Growing up in Cabrini Green, which tough neighborhood, man. And so tough neighborhood, and just to think about where this young man came from to where he went at UNI and to be a college graduate, right? And be a national champion, and how the sport allowed him to really just make his life and make a whole nother world for himself. Right. Not only him, but then his family, his kids.
And all those kids at the school he teaches that he's impacting. Like, imagine having Tony Davis as your gym teacher. That'd be the best. I mean, what could be better?
The best. I would love it.
You know?
I'd love to go back and have Tony as it'd be fun. He's no wonder he's teacher of the year in North Carolina, because he's got a great personality. He's great with kids. He's great with people. He just brings a lot of energy and brings that spirit about himself, and people feel that, and he's a sharp young man.
Yeah. We got about 15 minutes left. We got to hit on the senior campaign where Adam Terrapelli, one of my favorites from back in the day, he starts entering the picture, and all Tony says about him was that he was just built like a brick shit house. Just the arms huge. Like, tell us about Adam Terrapelli as a competitor.
Tough competitor, just a guy who's solid. Yeah, obviously like what you mentioned, just super strong, physical guy. Hard wrestling, and he was a good athlete, man. And Tony just hit him in a couple positions that are. Tony's a freak athlete, but just a freak feel. How can you imagine putting Terrapelli in that situation where he cradles him? Got a picture right there showing it. Just Tony was a good scrambler, and it's just a tough matchup for Adam, even though Adam was a great competitor, fierce competitor, and really strong, physical. And I knew he was prepared. He probably wasn't scared of Tony Davis. He knew he was going to scrap with him. And, he came through the Big Ten. He knew, hey, I wrestle good guys. Who's this guy from Northern Iowa? I'm gonna take him out.
Yeah. And there's not many times when both guys go out there and they both believe they can win. Like a lot of times guys you're wrestling, they already quit in their mind. But that's a guy who is going to try and kill you. Yeah. And he's happy if he does. And I love that stuff. Because it doesn't happen on the hunt. It doesn't happen that often when both guys actually think they can win.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of them. Another guy who Tony battled that year, Reggie Wright. Tell me what you remember about that duel down in Stillwater, if anything comes to mind.
Well, Reggie's a really good wrestler. Another guy with an amazing feel. I just remember, he kind of snaked one out on us. And I mean, just Oklahoma State, man. They just kind of, just nickel and dimed us, and got Tony. Yeah, I remember how upset Tony was that he didn't perform to his best. He let Reggie kind of dictate the pace of the match, and wrestling on the edge. Oklahoma State's great at wrestling on the edge of the mat. I mean, they've had 50 years of wrestling on the edge of the mat to their advantage, And so I remember Reggie got Tony that way. He just nickel and dimed him, and Tony was really ticked off. He was reacting to him rather than making Reggie really respect his fakes and his shots and his offense. But that's wrestling,
Tony's a guy who never cared about rankings or who he was wrestling ever. Like, I asked him about some of his high school matchups in Illinois or legendary. He doesn't even remember them because to him it's just another guy. Yeah. But when he was wrestling someone he knew, like TJ or Reggie Wright, and Reggie and Tony had a history. They wrestled Tony's junior year of high school. It was actually Tony's last high school match ever, and he lost in overtime. And then in JUCO, they wrestled in a dual meet. Tony bumped up to wrestle him, and Reggie won again. And so, he knew, that's like the only one of the two guys besides TJ that he actually knew. And that's always interesting to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's interesting. I knew that. Now that you say that, I knew that he had lost to Reggie a couple times. It was like in his head. I couldn't figure it out. I thought, all respect to Reggie, I thought Tony was better. I thought he was just, I thought he was more of a, just a tougher competitor. Now that Reggie's amazing wrestler, and so I know in Tony, some way Reggie got in his mind. He just had his number, and so yeah, it was surprising, but it's just how it is. It just and it went way back with him.
Yeah,
like you mentioned.
Tell me about one segment we're going to do is just a quick update on the NCAA tournament. Because a lot of Illinoisans follow it, but you've been in it 20 years in the trenches. How tough is the NCAA tournament?
Man, NCAA tournament is really, it's like NCAA basketball tournament. You have 64 teams or 68 teams, and you start the tournament, and how many people pick their bracket right? That's right. And so I know there's people try to pick the bracket right for wrestling. And it's like, you think the guys that's seeded first is always going to win. It's not, it doesn't always happen, right? I don't know the percentage, or the number 2 ranked guy doesn't always come through. Mm-hmm. We had that happen to us last year. Mm-hmm. And so, you learn and make adjustments, but I think the key is that anyone can win that tournament. And so you have to make sure you're prepared for 5 matches, and that's tough to stay locked in mentally to what you do great at all the time. And so I think the biggest thing is not to get wrapped up in, well, I'm seeded 4th, I'm seeded 5th, I'm seeded 6th, I'm number 1 seed. Doesn't really matter. It's just you're going to wrestle 5 matches.
Mm-hmm. What were your expectations for Tony going into that last tournament for him?
Just to win the whole thing. It's a lot of pressure on people. I think the pressure was on TD. You know what I mean? Because he was returning national runner-up. He was close. I knew he wanted it bad, and I think, sometimes that's the sweetest time to win is when you're favored and you come through, because you've overcome all the things in the world. You've overcome the pressure. You've overcome people's expectation, and that's great.
And then he makes it to the finals. I got the Terrapelli match. This is a crazy match. So, talk us through some of the early parts of that match when Tony's controlling the center of the match. Did you see that there?
Yeah, man, amazing that in wrestling we just figured it out. The edge of the mat, 1 foot in, and just how much now that wrestling is, you benefit by being aggressive on the edge of the mat, where there, you edge of the mat, you're out of bounds. I remember that same thing with Brian, TJ Williams, Becker. Edge of the mat wasn't a big deal really when you were in.
Right.
Now, edge of the mat's huge. You think about freestyle, edge of the mat push-out points.
Right.
So I really, Tony was really the aggressor in the first period, which was really great. He didn't get rewarded really for it, but he was definitely the aggressor in the first period. I loved it.
What happened throughout the rest of the match that you watched there?
Man, I know as a coach, I don't remember a lot of that match right now, but I got a lot of matches to remember. But
what'd you just watch there on the iPad?
Just Tony's his poise. He's just poised late in the match. It was nothing amazing technique other than just great feel, great wrestling by both guys. Really, it just Tony kept his poise about him, kept his composure, and good things happened.
For a low-scoring match, there was a lot of action.
Absolutely. They're both great athletes. Adam and Tony were both great athletes, obviously. And yeah.
What do you remember from celebrating that night, if anything?
Man, I just remember how pumped our boosters and the crowd were, and us coaches just to see Tony do it and to have that dream come to fruition for him. We were just so excited for him, man. It was just great to see, and great to put a smile on people's face, and great to have that fan base just really be re-energized. That's what I remember.
And then kind of the last thing I'll ask you is, you've talked about Tony in this context as a survivor, and a lot of people have brought that up, and it may even be the title of this documentary. Why does that word trigger for you when you think about Tony?
Well, I have no really idea of what Tony really grew up in. I mean, I didn't grow up in that. I've seen a little bit of it, but for what Tony's experienced growing up, Tony was great. He was the only person of color on our team. I think we had 40 some guys on our team at UNI, and no one talks about that, right? Think about what Tony had to deal with, not the other 39 white guys, but what Tony had to deal with.
The only one.
No, he was the only person of color on our team, and love the guy, man. Love all my heart.
Last question. He's told me before that you were the influence while he went into being a teacher. What hearing that, what does that make you feel based on all the time you put in?
Oh, I just I know the teachers, that reason why I'm a coach is because I had good coaches when I was in high school and growing up, and they influenced me why I am here, why I wanted to be a coach, wanted to be an educator. And I think it's great. I think it's, someone helped me figure that out. And then, for me to give that gift to someone else, it's great. Tony is just, he means so much. He's just like another son to me. And I love him for that. He always has a special place in my heart.
Thanks for listening to this podcast with Mark Manning. As always, Wrestling Changed My Life is presented by Spartan Combat. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify podcasts. We'll see you next time. 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 See you next time.